Welcome, everyone. Let's begin our lesson for today by going over the learning goals and success criteria. First, what are we learning? We're learning how to convert between trinomials and squared binomials, and how to complete the square by splitting up the constants within a quadratic equation. How are we learning it? Through the completing the square notes and the completing the square assignment. When can we use this information? To rearrange your schedule in order to make space for another event. How do you know you learned it? By getting a score of 4 on the completing the square assignment. Now let's take a look at our agenda for today. We'll begin by going over the learning goals and success criteria. While we do that, you'll fill out your Get It Started. Once you've completed your Get It Started, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. Next, we'll do our weekly raffle. After that, we'll go over the completing the square notes, and then I'll give you time to complete the completing the square assignment. Once you've completed the assignment, we'll go over it together and answer any questions that you may have. At the end of class, we'll go back over our learning goals and success criteria while you fill out your Before You Go. Your only homework for tonight is to continue working on the quadratic study guide and any incomplete assignments that you may have. Let's take a look now at the completing the square notes. The notes begin with the learning goals and success criteria. Now, what is a perfect square trinomial? A perfect square trinomial is a trinomial that looks like this: x squared plus 2bx plus b squared. So b is some value. It'll be actually a constant. And the number here should be exactly double it. So an example of this would be x squared plus 6x plus 9. So we know that 9 is 3 squared, and 3 times 2 is 6. So this is a perfect square trinomial. When we factor this, we recognize that this becomes x plus 3 times x plus 3, or x plus 3 squared. Another example would be x squared plus 8x plus 16. Well, we know that 16 is 4 squared, and 4 times 2 is 8, so it's a perfect square trinomial. So that's the same thing as 2 times 4 and 4 squared. When we factor that, it becomes x plus 4 squared. Another example, x squared minus 8x plus 16. Same thing, this is now negative 4 squared, and this is 2 times 4. So now it becomes x minus 4 squared. So this is how we can factor these trinomials. Now, not every trinomial is a perfect square, but we're going to figure out how to make it a perfect square. So the question is, what should c be to complete the square? And by completing the square, we mean creating a perfect square trinomial. So we have x squared minus 12x plus c. Well, we don't know what c is, but we can see that negative 12 is the same thing as 2 times negative 6. So that means that we just take this value and square it, and that becomes my c value. Well, 6 squared is 36. So now it should look like this: x squared minus 2 times 6x plus 36. So that gives me my perfect square here, trinomial. Now I can factor that into a binomial. So another example, we have x squared minus 3x plus c. So that becomes negative 2 times 3 over 2, right? Because we're going to divide this in half, so 3 over 2, x plus c. And then we just square this to find our c value. So 3 squared is 9, 2 squared is 4, so we get 9 over 4. Should be our answer. So this becomes our c value. Now, what if there's already a constant value and it doesn't complete the square? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to ignore this plus 8 for now and figure out what our c value should be. So we figure out that half of negative 6 is negative 3, and if we square that, we get 9. So this is what it should say, and this is what it does say. So now we need to rewrite the original constant in terms of the new constant. So we take what we have here, we know it needs to be plus 9, and we need to say, how do we get from 9 to 8? Well, in order to get from 9 to 8, we subtract 1. So this is the same thing as x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 1. And if we combine like terms, we get back up to here where we started. So now we're going to write that as a perfect square trinomial. So this becomes x squared minus 6x plus 9, and then we leave the minus 1 on the outside. So now we have our perfect square trinomial here. Now we can rewrite this as x minus 3 squared minus 1. So this would be our completing the square version. Let's look at another example. So we have x squared minus 12x minus 4. Well, we're going to take this, divide negative 12 in half, and we get negative 6. And then when we square that, we recognize that it should be 36, so that's not here. So we write down what we need it to be. We know it needs to be 36. Now we need to figure out how we get back to there. So we take 36, and how do we get from 36 to negative 4? Well, we have to subtract 40 from it, because 36 minus 40 is negative 4. So now we have it in this form. Now we can go ahead and write that as a perfect square. So we're just going to put parentheses around this part and leave the minus 40 by itself. Now we can go ahead and factor it. So we get x minus 6 squared minus 40. We'll look at another example. Now we have 2x squared minus 12x minus 4. So we're going to factor out the lead coefficient because we can't complete the square if there's a number in front. So we're going to divide everything by 2. So now we get 2 times x squared minus 6x minus 2. Now we go through our steps like we did before. So we take negative 6 and divide it in half. Well, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. We square that and we get 9. So that's what we need it to be. But instead we have negative 2. So we need to rewrite this. How do we get from 9 to negative 2? Well, we subtract 11. So now we have 2 times x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 11. Now we rewrite it as a perfect square trinomial. So we get x squared minus 6x plus 9, and that becomes x minus 3 squared. And then we take this part and we just need to distribute the 2 back to it. So 2 times negative 11 is negative 22. So we get 2x minus 3 squared minus 22. Now there's a video here that shows you how you can use Symbol Lab to help check your work when completing the square. So go ahead and watch that video now. Let's take a look now at how we can use Symbol Lab to check our work when working with completing the square. So we go to Symbol Lab and we go to the completing the square calculator. We're going to go here and type in our equation. So let's say it's x squared minus 4x plus 9. We're going to go ahead and click go. It shows us what it should be at the end, which is x minus 2 squared plus 5. And if we scroll down, it'll actually show us the steps of how to get there. So here's how we would do that. So this is one way that you can check your work when completing the square using Symbol Lab. Let's take a look now at the completing the square assignment. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. If we scroll down, we can see the questions. So the first one says, find the value of c that completes the square. So we have x squared plus 6x plus c. Well, what we should recognize is that c is going to be the square of half of whatever this value is. So if we take 6 and cut it in half, that's 3, and then we square it. So 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. So c should be 9. So we go ahead and check that one. Then we move on to the next one. X squared minus 10x plus c. Well, we should notice that if we cut this in half, so half of negative 10 is negative 5. And then negative 5 squared is positive 25. So that would be our answer. And then we'll continue to answer all of these until we get to the end of the assignment. Once we get to the end, we'll go ahead and click Next. This will take you to your Before You Go. Go ahead and fill out your Before You Go and then submit your work on Google Classroom.